Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Henry Clavo, CEO and founder of Orlando Insight Group. Today, we're joined by Stephanie Pittman, a communications coach who helps professionals master communications in the moments that matter most: interviews, presentations, promotions, and conversation with leadership. In this discussion, we'll explore how professionals can communicate their value more effectively, prepare for high stakes interviews and presentations, and build the confidence needed to speak clearly with executives and stakeholders. Stephanie, welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yes, we were excited to have you. Like, your experience is very interesting, especially how you started.
Yeah.
We can touch upon that later, but Stephanie, your work focuses on helping professionals communicate clearly during the most important moments in their careers. What led you to focus on communications as your specialty?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, the funny story is when I first started college, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Mm,
And I had a class on presenting, a public speaking class, and my teacher showed me Joe Navarro. And I don't know if you know who that is, but he is an ex FBI agent and he wrote his own book. I think he's wrote a few now. And it was all about nonverbal communication. And we were watching some interview of his as he was talking about how in interrogations he could tell whether people were lying or not. And I
mm,
remember sitting there thinking, he's a superhero. Like this is crazy. Like that is a skill you see in a superhero movie. And that got me on my journey of communication. So I studied communication, leadership, and strategy at Michigan State University. And there I was able to work with nonprofits, government organizations, got my start. And I realized that a lot of times as I was working, the most talented people were going often unheard. And it
mm,
wasn't for a lack of skill or talent. It was a lot of times a lack of just communication tools,
mm.
a lack of being able to bring their idea to other people in a way that made sense. And so seeing that gap really became my mission because being able to communicate was such an important part of me, my career, and my success.
Wow. And so you identified a business opportunity. How were you able to not only work with clients, but also form a business and be able to navigate it too? I know those two are two different things.
Yeah, yeah, and the funny enough is it's related because it comes down to my communication.
Mm,
So, I was pretty young when I started this business. I graduated college early. I started college early. So, I graduated at 19.
mm,
And I was starting out, I had worked a little bit before in the summers, and I wanted to see really could I make a business on the one skill that I'm marketing, and that's communication. And so I did not know a ton about marketing, but I went and I decided I was going to do networking events because
mhm.
people I know, people I can do. So I signed up for a ton of networking events and I just talked my butt off, and metaphorically speaking. And so I got into these rooms and I paid for a lot of them. I signed up for them. And what I did is I tried to connect with people. So I would ask people about them, their business, what are they doing? Are there any challenges? And the key was I did really care about what they were doing. I was very interested. And I got my first client actually ended up being a Fortune 500 company. So that was
Mhm.
a crazy win right off the bat. And it was not my first networking event. It was one of my first, but I had that strategy. I went in, I talked to people. I found people from this company and I was just asking them, "What do you do in the company?"
Mm,
And what they were in charge of actually was the professional development. Yes, that's
mm,
what they were in charge of the professional development. So they were talking about some changes happening upcoming. It was closer to around COVID, so people were moving back into the office, and
right.
they wanted a lot. They were struggling coming back from like virtual to hybrid teams to in person and all of those changes. And when it got to my turn, we had been having probably about a 15-minute conversation. And they asked me what I did. And I said, actually, funny enough, I help companies and organizations and individuals with that, with communicating.
Mm,
And they were blown away. They're like, "You're exactly who I needed. you're exactly, let's talk later. And we ended up continuing, and that's how I got my first client. But it came down to utilizing the one skill I help people with, and that's, could I communicate in a way that connected with others and
Mm.
that was clear and powerful and impactful?
Yeah, it is now more important because of COVID, that we've been in a more
Yeah.
virtual environment,
Yeah.
and it's becoming a rare skill, basically a lost art. I
Yes.
guess, have you had any challenges working with companies or people that lack that basic structure, or you've been lucky to work with very good communicators?
I think, well, it's a mix of both. I think a lot of people come to me because they realize that gap.
Mm,
So a lot of people are seeking me out because they know that there's that gap right there.
mm,
And I've also had a mix. I've had people who come to me who are great communicators who wanna get better. So, like, one of my clients, businessman, he is so successful, he wants to change into politics.
mm,
And he's a very, very successful business owner, but in the politics, it's a very different communication style. You need to come across very differently. So for a career change like that, you need a different type of communication. And so I get, overall, I would say I get a good mix, but a lot of it could be from like very beginners to people who English might be their second language. So they might have an
mm,
accent. And then how do we
mm.
reduce that accent to not only sound clearer, but
Right.
also what you're saying? How do we make that more persuasive, impactful as well to people who are super successful already, who are tops of companies, CEOs of companies who want to improve their craft because they know how important that skill is?
Definitely, definitely. To change subject, I guess, how to prepare high stakes interviews and presentations.
Yes.
Well, let's start with high stakes moments like interviews or big presentations. Why do even very smart professionals freeze or struggle when the pressure is high?
Yes. I see a couple of reasons here. So the first one is in these high stakes moments. A lot of times, what that triggers when the pressure's on is we shift from being ourselves to performing, to
Mm,
feeling like we're being watched, to feeling like, oh, the pressure's on. Okay, I need to get ready. And a lot of times, what happens is that fear of judgment, that feel of failure, the nervousness of being in a new environment overrides our natural thinking. And so that's one of the mistakes, is not mostly a mistake, but it's what's happening is we get nervous, the adrenaline, it's this high pressure environment. So our adrenaline's pumping, so we feel more nervous, and that's can contribute to people freezing.
mm,
And so that's what's happening kind of in the moment. Behind the scenes, one thing I see that people can do is people freeze because they have not practiced, and they have not practiced in a normal setting, also under pressure.
mm,
So, what I teach with my clients all the time is we want to practice until it's just second nature.
mm,
Because when you're in these settings, you're going to fall back to whatever your natural state is a lot of times. And so, if you have enough practice answering hard questions or maybe speaking in front of groups, when you keep practicing that skill, it makes it feel more normal, and you have these skills already ingrained with you when it gets to that high stake presentation,
mm.
if that makes sense. So a lot of times the freeze is that survival mode of fight, flight, freeze.
Oh,
And
yes.
that's we're gonna have a little bit of nervousness or anxiety in those high pressure environments. But what we can do is practice under regular moments or practice under scenarios that aren't quite as high stakes, but maybe a similar setting, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, they have to be. It's like a psychology trick. You have to be exposed to it in order
Yeah.
to alleviate the pressure.
Yes.
And a good example is if you watched the Oscars yesterday, like Conan O'Brien was the host. Sometimes he will bomb, and then he will make light of a joke in the
Yeah.
beginnings to move the process along. So it does make sense. You have to be exposed to it, and then you have to perform uh, in a process.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
If someone only had like 24 hours to prepare for an important interview, what would be the three most important things they should focus on?
So the first thing I would say, I love this question. The first thing I would say is you need to be practicing like this is a live interview, and you need to be practicing out loud. So that could be having a friend or family member read you out some questions. It could be you having ChatGPT. This is an interview I'm doing. Put it in there and give me 10 questions, and then you're answering them out loud on the spot. So that's the number one thing you should be doing is practicing out loud. And that's a perfect transition is if you haven't been practicing out loud, you're not going to be in the moment when it's an interview that you really want. You're always going to sound better with a little bit of practice. So if you practice out loud, a lot of people I see will be like, it's good enough just to read the questions in my head and know what I would kind of say. When you say it out loud, you can see the kinks. You can see what's working, what's not. So that's number one. You should be practicing out loud. You should not know the questions in advance. The second thing I would say is do not memorize. This is a really big thing I see in interviews is people want to come across as very smart and articulate. When we memorize, it a lot of times makes us stiff and it's like we're reciting lines. And so for what I see people do is instead of spending time practicing how they would answer in a dynamic situation, they spend the time writing the perfect answer and trying to memorize it.
Mm.
So practice live, but don't be so focused on the perfect answer, the right answer. And the last thing I would say, the third thing that should be top of mind is stories.
Mm.
Always have a story. So I like to think of I have a core story and I have like 3 to 5 key stories that could highlight key traits of mine. In interviews, we use a lot of adjectives. We use a lot of I'm organized. And that is great to say, but what is more impactful is if you can tell a story about how you organized a team meeting together or how you organized a set of documents and that improved the efficiency of your team and saved this much time. That's going to stick with people and be a lot more impressive than just saying the adjective. So having a core story about who I am and what you need to know about me, and also a couple examples for other questions they might ask where you can pull out a story of I'm organized. Actually, it's funny you ask because my current boss just told me that I as a side project I organized a set of documents and it was really fun for me, but it was also so helpful for the team. And my boss just told me that it's been saving about 2 hours a week in time because people can access these files as quick as possible. So you see how those two differences, the second one, it sounds way more compelling.
Yeah, and having spoken with many people and through the process, that is usually common that they respond with one sentences, one word, or they go through a rant that does not answer the question. So it
Yeah.
makes sense to follow these structures, and I'm
Yep.
glad, Stephanie, you outlined them clearly so our uh, community can understand that
Yeah.
you need to engage with the interviewer and be able to answer these questions, what they're asking. Yeah.
Yes.
Communicating with leadership is very different from communicating with peers. What are the biggest communication mistakes professionals make when speaking with executives?
Yeah. So one thing I see very commonly is people will bury the point. And I'm sure at some point we've all experienced this, where someone comes to us and they're leading with context and we're waiting for them to tell us what this is about. So this could be someone coming up to you saying, "Last Friday, I was working on this assignment and I noticed something. I was looking at this detail and I noticed the difference between this and this. And then I had a realization." So that is you're leading with the context, you're leading with the explanation. And when you do that, people are waiting for, okay, what's the point of what you're going to tell me?
Mm.
So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see is when we're speaking with executives, they are big picture people. They
Mm.
are
Oh,
they
yeah.
want the big picture. They don't always need the day to day or a ton of context. They might need a little bit. But when you're speaking to them, you should start with whatever your main point is. I noticed that we've been 2 weeks behind on this project. And then you can give the context of when I was working on this, I noticed that when I was working on this assignment and I saw this in our sheets. But when you start with the context, it takes longer, and a lot of times it's not as efficient of a conversation. So when you're talking to more of those big picture, those executive people, they're so busy. They want to know, okay, what is the main point of this? How can I help?
Yeah, and they do have limited time, and they
Mm.
need you to provide the ask.
Yes.
Usually, people that have skip interviews or skip meetings,
Yeah.
they go in and they ask. They pretty much give them their progress report, and they don't talk about what they can leverage with the
Mm.
executives. That's one of the mistakes I noticed as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Moving on, what does executive communication actually look like in practice?
Yes. Oh, I love this. I love working on this with people so much because peer-to-peer communication is very, very different than being a leader. And so, what executive communication looks like a lot of times is you want to, when you're giving a recommendation or this is what we're doing next, you want to lead with that and then have that support. So, if you've ever had someone who's been very clear, you can see that. Leaders a lot of times will tell you they'll be very direct and very, very clear. So, that's an actionable thing I see them do. Executive communication is usually very concise. Not always, but ideally, it's pretty concise, pretty easy to follow. Everyone can be on the same page, no matter what your background is, no matter what you do in the company. These executive communicators always, I love when they have conviction. You can see a lot of times when you are a leader in a company, they're not using permission language like, well, I was thinking maybe we could try. They're not doing that. They're saying, my recommendation is we go with this. They're very direct, straightforward. And the most important is they know when to stop talking.
Mm.
A lot of times I've seen people who ramble or go on too often. And the biggest difference I see with executive communicators is they know how much to say and when to stop talking.
It reinforces the idea you want to look competent. You also want to look that a person is able to handle responsibility. That's why
Yeah.
you have these meetings or have these updates with executives, or they won't take you seriously. So I think that's the idea here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in your experience, what separates professionals who are heard and respected by leadership from those who get overlooked?
Yeah. So the first thing is they take up what I would like to call the right amount of space. So
Hmm.
they're not the people who are always the loudest or overbearing, but they're also not the people who are the quietest. They're more of a mix. One thing they do differently is they communicate with people, not at them. And this reminds me of something that you said earlier today is in those interviews, you have people where you ask them a question and maybe they're answering with something that's not really an answer to the question you ask. And a lot of times that happens because people have been rehearsing specific questions and they're like, I have such a good answer. It's close enough. I'll say that. That is communicating at someone, not with them. Because for you, maybe as the interviewer, you can tell that's not really what I asked. It doesn't seem like we're on the same page. The professionals who are heard do such a good job of making people feel heard themselves, is having that connection, that conversation that's with people, not just at them. A lot of times they're consistent. So they're not what people think is, okay, someone who's heard is that person who speaks up in those big moments. But it's not just that. Yes, they speak up in the big moments, but they also speak up in some of those smaller moments too. So maybe it's that weekly team meeting, they add one or two things consistently. It's that consistency that sets them apart is they don't just only step up when it's a big project. It's a consistent character trait that they have.
Hmm.
And the last thing I would say that separates people who are heard from the people who are overlooked is they are clear and they make others feel like what they're saying is clear. So there have been times I've been in meetings and someone's talked for 5 minutes and by the end I've been more confused than I was before. And the people who are heard, who get promoted, who get those opportunities are the ones who are the most clear, not the ones that use the biggest words or the most impressive or anything like that.
And have I'm sure you experienced this in your professional career, and also working with these uh, people. Have they shared these experiences with you as well?
Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, yes. I've helped people get promoted from a director to supervisor, one most recently. I helped other people get better jobs with a higher pay, that's a better salary, and a lot of times what it comes down to is a lot of these pillars. It's, are you connecting with people? Are you clear? Are you consistent? And that's something that people look for, and that helps you feel like in these opportunities where maybe you're getting promoted, maybe you're getting a new job, if they feel connected to you, if they feel like you're clear, if they know that you're consistent, that's always the safe choice for a promotion, a job, a big moment, a big project. Is we want the person who's consistent, who's clear, and who is good with people.
And yeah, that it takes two to tango. And I'm glad that you're here
Yeah.
to share these tips and make them understand that yes, I can do this on my own, but at the same time, I also need to get information from people that know more than me to be able to be effective in my job and also know my gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I love that.
If someone listening to this podcast wants to improve their communication immediately, what are the few simple habits that they can start practicing tomorrow?
Yeah. I would say I could give you a million, but I'll just keep it down to a few. So what I would say is the number one thing is think about what is your main point in every conversation you have. If there was one thing that someone could walk away from each conversation you're having, what is the main takeaway? A lot of times, I'm guilty of this myself. We don't have a goal when we're talking to someone. When we start doing, it's that little shift. If we have a goal, if we have just a main point, I want them to leave thinking this. Even if it's, I want them to leave knowing a little bit more about me than they did yesterday. And so we can start to build a better bond. Even that's my main point. That's my main goal. That makes a conversation so much easier, so much clearer, and feel more productive. So I'd say that's one. And the second one I would do is, if you're serious, if you're like, I know I'm very talented, I'm good at my job. I keep feeling like I should get that promotion. I should be taking on that next big project, and I just don't know why. I think it could be my communication. I think I could be more persuasive and better. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to 5 minutes a day. It does not need to be more than this. 5 minutes a day could be while you're driving home. It could be, when you're about to eat, you have 5 minutes, whatever it is. I want you to take out your phone and record yourself. And I want you to do like one 5 minute, could be 3 minute, doesn't even need to be five, but a voice memo or a video of yourself. And I want you to summarize something. It could be talking about your day, it could be talking about a project, it could be talking about something you're excited for, it could be weekend plans, whatever it is. I want you for a couple minutes to record yourself and then listen to it back. It is so uncomfortable, but nothing will help you grow faster. So when I started working, I would do this to really help myself get into a better communication point with executives. And one thing I found is I didn't know I tilt my head naturally. And by recording myself, I realized I was like, why do I keep tilting my head? That's such a little adjustment, but I would have never known, never in years. It would never have known I did that. No one would have ever told me. But you can see those minor adjustments. Are you saying ums too much? Are you tilting your head? Are you stuttering? Do you have too many pauses? Are you too monotone? The quickest way to find those fixes is just that simple recording.
Practical strategies, and it is something that's lacking. When I went to college, I did take public speaking, and I
Yeah.
had to go up and make a speech.
Yeah.
So these are very actionable insights and tips for students and also professionals to take seriously
Yeah.
as they want to grow in their career. Um, we're close to time, but I wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what communication skill will become most important in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked this. And I would say this is a skill that a lot of people don't realize is majorly communication based, and that's connection. So
Mm.
with the rise of AI, with the new technology that's coming out, AI, what I've seen is they can tell you what to say in a speech. They could write your speech for you. They could tell you what to say to a friend when you're having a problem. They could say what should you say to a boss when you're asking for a raise. They cannot deliver it for you. They cannot build relationships for you. So in the next 5 to 10 years, the people who are good at connecting with others, connecting with whether it's their boss, whether it's clients, if you are able to connect with someone, that is what's going to take you far. So I especially with the rise of AI, a lot of people in writing can come across very well, very professional. But when you're seeing them in person, when you're having a conversation, are they robotic? Do you feel connected to them? Is this someone you feel like you can trust? Is this someone you like? Being liked, also underrated, but that's a big part of connection. So those professionals who can connect with people, and especially the right people,
Mm.
that's going to be that skill that is so underrated but takes you so far.
I agree with you, Stephanie. Especially in my career, I was a technologist, but I've noticed the importance of connecting, having conversations, and being able to connect with somebody. I underestimated that, and I'm learning it now in my early 30s and now mid 30s.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the Orlando Insights podcast.
Yeah.
We would love to have you come back for another episodes
Yeah.
as you continue to grow. Can people find you? Do you have any social media handles that people can reach out to?
Yes, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and then on Instagram, on TikTok, my name is the Stephanie Pittman. I post daily communication tips. So if you're interested in, they're very actionable, like I did today. Very easy, very actionable tips. If you want to improve your communication, if you want to get to those moments in your career where you know that you have the talent, you have the skill, you just need to be able to communicate it, I will post tips for you. So follow me for those daily tips.
Awesome. Any upcoming events for you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I do not have any upcoming events on the books, but I will be posting them on my social media when they come up. So as long as you follow me, join my email list as well. You can do that on my socials. You'll be able to see where you could see me live or any events that I'll be a part of.
Perfect. And we look forward to in the future seeing you release a book, share your insights. I think that'll be very valuable.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And that wraps up another episode of Orlando Insights Podcast. To catch more episodes like this and people like Stephanie, follow us at Orlando Insight Group on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and our website. So you have a good night.